guys, it's Dr. Bickling from Own It Dental, coming to you from an undisclosed location in the wilderness. As always, here's my contact information if you need to get a hold of me. And if you guys are enjoying these videos, please do hit that thumbs up button, that like button. It's right down below, and it's my goal to get each and every one of you to do it. Speaking of goals, today we're going to talk about how to set SMART goals. I've gone over goals in the past, but today we're going to get a little bit more specific. So let's dig into it. All right, so like I said, today we're going to talk about how to make SMART goals. SMART goals, it's an acronym for your goals need to be specific, they need to be measurable, they do need to be achievable, they need to be realistic or relevant, and they need to be timely. Another T could be they need to be tracked. So these are our SMART goals, and I'm going to go over each of the goals that I set for my staff and how often I track them, how I measure them, and how I set them. So let's dig into it. All right, so here are the specific goals that I set for my staff, and here's my pointer here. Obviously, I want to track my filled hygiene, and I'll have a projected, I'll track my projected filled hygiene, and I'll have a monthly filled hygiene goal. I'll even have a daily filled hygiene goal. Of course, my pre-appointment rate. We've had videos on that in the past, but we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Of course, I have goals for production and collections, and I'll tell you how I come up with those goals every month. We have our new patient goals. I want to get a certain number of new patients every month because we do want to grow the business. I have a treatment plan case acceptance goal. I'll tell you mine. There's probably a million different ways of defining treatment plan case acceptance, but I'll tell you what mine is, and your mileage may vary on that one, but so your goal may vary on that one. But then also the number of reactivation calls, hygiene reactivation calls that are made either every day or every week. So these are the specific goals that I have, and we're going to dig into them one by one. So let's go to the first one now. All right, so my filled hygiene goal. How do I come up with a filled hygiene goal? You know, I know there's a lot of different methods of coming up with filled hygiene goals. I'd have some clients who just want to do 10% better than they did last month. And my rebuttal to that is, well, what does this month have to do with last month? You know, if they saw, let's say, 500 filled hygiene last month, let's say, well, this month we're going to do 550. You know, we're going to do 10% more. Well, this month's hygiene patients don't come from last month. They come from 6 months ago. So it's more realistic that we set our goals not based on last month, but based on where we were 6 months ago. So if I had 500 filled hygiene 6 months ago, I expect that we're going to pre-appoint 98% of them. That's my expectation. That's my pre-appointment goal. We'll get into that here in a second. But if I do pre-appoint 98% of them, that means there's already going to be 490 of them on the books, assuming I pre-appoint 98% of them. Okay, and then all I do is I just add my average number of new patients that I receive every month. And let's say I receive 50 new patients every month. So my 490 plus 50 means that my filled hygiene goal this month is going to be 540 filled hygiene this month. And I even break that down into a daily goal. So, you know, if this is August, if I'm assuming if your office is open 6 days a week, that means you'll have 27 working days this month. So 540 divided by 27, you should be seeing 20 filled hygiene appointments per day. One of the points of these goals too is it's not to push your patients, it's not to push our hygienists to do more. One of the points of this is I have to realize, do I have room to see 20 filled hygiene per day? Sure, I may have seen 500 6 months ago, but now I'm expecting to see an additional additional 40 patients this month. That's almost an additional 2 patients per day. And although I may have had enough room to see 500, does that mean I have enough room to see these? Does that mean that I have room to see 20 per day? So that's another thing. If you're not growing your capacity, if you're not adding hygienists and hygiene appointments, you're not going to have any extra room. And if you don't have any extra room, you're just going to be kicking patients out, and you're going to be hovering at this 500 forever, right? So this is also to give me an indication of how many available appointments do I have to fill in a day. And by the way, if I want to fill 20, that doesn't mean that I have 20 available. I'm more like I need to have like 30 available, because we're going to have openings and we're going to have cancellations, and you know all about that. Even if some of those 30 are phantom columns or appointments that don't really have a chair attached to them, because we know that somebody's going to cancel. Cancellation rates can be up to 30 or 40% in some of our offices. So in any case, this is also an indication of how much availability we need to have. The next goal, obviously, is our pre-appointment rate. It has to be greater than 98%. If it's not, it's a fail. And I have videos on that in the past. I'll put a link to a video here. So got to be greater than 98%. This is not, 80% is a B, no. 95% is an A, no. 95% is a fail. So anything less than 98% is unacceptable, and we have to make sure that we're reaching that goal. Production and collections goal. Of course, why are we in business? We're in business to produce and to collect. We're in business to make money, right? And to help patients. So we're going to have goals. The way I come up with these goals, it's very easy. I just take my field hygiene goal and I multiply it by my average production the production that I've been averaging on per field hygiene for the last 12 months. So again, this is what we've been doing. We've been, let's just assume that the average production is $550, right? That's what we've been averaging for the last months. Well, then I just multiply that by whatever my field hygiene goal is, and there's going to be my production goal. And your collections might be a little less than that. So let's say we were collecting $500, per field hygiene for the last 12 months. Again, I just multiply that by the field hygiene, and there's my collections goal. So again, these goals are very specific. They're measurable, obviously. They're achievable, and more importantly, they're relevant. They're relevant to what we've already done. So I'm not just making up numbers out of the air and pushing people to reach these numbers. We have to grow. I'm making it realistic, and I'm making it relevant to what we've already done in the past, because these are goals. These are things that we can do. And of course, I don't think it needs to be said, but when we set goals, my expectation is that we beat these goals. So in any case, new patient goals, simply I just take my average number of new patients that I've been receiving every month for the last 12 months, and that's my new patient goal. So this is another one of those things that, how do you reach new patient goals? Well, it's not necessarily by increasing your marketing, and it's not necessarily by 5-star reviews and asking for referrals and stuff like that, because all of that stuff is well and good, but if you don't have a place to put them, you're not going to get any more. I always say that new patients are irrelevant or have very little to do with your production and collections until they become part of your existing patient base. And I firmly believe that. But one thing that new patients are a good indication of is, do you have enough capacity? I say that your new patient numbers are more a reflection of your availability, your open availability, than they are of your marketing, your 5-star Google reviews, or asking for referrals. So if you start to see your new patient numbers go down, that might be an indication that maybe you don't have enough open availability. Maybe you don't have enough convenient appointments, same day or the next day, or within 24 to 48 hours to get those patients in. I guarantee you, if you open up your availability, you're going to see your new patient numbers increase. But we do have new patient goals, and again, this is more of an indication to me as the owner. Do I have enough open availability, or do I need to hire more people so I can get more new patients in the door? Treatment plan case acceptance. Now, treatment plan case acceptance, I've seen a million different definitions of this. A patient may have $10,000 worth of dentistry, but as long as they accept something, that's considered 100% case acceptance. My definition was a little bit more strict. What I would do is, for every treatment plan dollar that we gave to the patient, how much of it did we collect? And so if the patient had a treatment plan for $10,000, if we collected $5,000 of it, or how much did we get them on the books for, we'll say that. If we got them on the books for $5,000 of it, well, that's a 50% case acceptance, because they only accepted half of their treatment plan. So I know that that's probably the most strict definition of it, but that's the definition that I went by. I tried to be as strict as possible with that definition. So my goal was greater than 50% of any of the treatment plan dollars that we treatment planned. I wanted to get half of it or more on the books. I had a minimum acceptable goal, given that definition, of 25%. If anybody started dipping below 25%, we need to have a conversation as to why that's the case. Now, I also broke this down not only for my doctors, but also for my treatment planners. And sometimes it's really interesting to see, you may have a doctor that's really good, but a treatment planner that stinks and needs some help. Or vice versa. You may have a doctor that stinks, but a treatment planner that swoops in and saves the day. This is important information for you to have. No matter what your definition of treatment plan case acceptance is, come up with an acceptable goal that works for yours. Maybe 50%, maybe more. Again, depending on your definition, your goal might be a little bit different than this. Reactivation calls. This is one of those things that I'm sure does not get tracked, and it's one of the most important things in dentistry. My reactivation calls. I would track this both daily and weekly. I didn't really care too much how many were made per day, but at the end of the week, I wanted to make sure that there was enough. Basically, the way I come up with this number is I just go to my overdue hygiene recare list, and let's say for the last 12 months, and let's say that there's 500 people on that list. I divide it by 10 days, or 2 weeks worth of working days. Let's assume just Monday through Friday. So I take that number, that let's say there's 500 patients in that overdue hygiene list. I divide it by 10 days, and I want my staff making 10 calls a day for 2 weeks, and then go through that list. And then after 2 weeks, we print the list again, and we start at the beginning of the list and go through the list. So I want them making 50 calls per day, or 250 calls per week. And again, I don't necessarily care how many calls are made per day, but at the end of the week, I want to make sure that there have been 250 calls made. And again, the reason why we're making these reactivation calls is because we are going to have cancellations, and we have to get those patients back on the books. If you don't get them back on the books, you're never going to see them again. They're gone. So in any case, we have to be making those reactivation calls. And honestly, there's nothing better than, there's no better way of spending your money than on reactivation calls. I know we think that marketing for new patients is the way to go, but I've seen reactivation rates as high as 10% or more. Think about this. Does your marketing bring in 10% of the people it touches? No, it doesn't. It's probably more like 1% or less of the people it touches it. So, but a 10% reactivation rate, that's incredible. And these patients, they're already your existing patients. So they know you, they like you, they trust you. These patients accept treatment plans more readily than new patients, and they spend 2 to 3 times as much. So there's no bigger bang for your buck than making these reactivation calls and tracking them, making sure that they're done. So again, these are my goals, but a goal is only good if you track it. If you don't track it, that goal goes to die. So again, here are each of my goals. So let's talk about what goals do I track and how often do I track them. So the goals that I track daily are these. I'm always tracking our projected filled hygiene, our projected production, our projected new patients, and our projected collections. I track these on a daily basis. I take whatever our monthly filled hygiene number is, divide it by the number of days that we've worked, and then multiply that number by the total number of working days. And I use the same formula for each of these. On a daily basis, I need to know where we're headed, what are our projected numbers in each of these 4 categories. And it's very simple. You just do the math that I just said, and you should know these numbers within about 5 seconds. So pretty easy. What goals do I track on a weekly basis? My pre-appointment rate, my hygiene reactivation calls, and my case acceptance rate. Every Wednesday morning, I'll walk in and this information will be on my desk. I want to know that our pre-appointment rate is greater than 98%. If it's not, I simply ask, why not? And again, go back to that pre-appointment video and you can talk a little bit more about that. But in each of these cases, if we're not meeting a goal, I simply ask the question, why? What's the reason why we haven't met that goal? That way I can solve that reason. It's not to get people in trouble or to yell at them. It's simply I want to know the reason why we're not meeting that goal. Maybe somebody needs to be trained again, or re-educated in a certain procedure or system. Or maybe I need to give my staff more tools and more resources in order to meet those goals. So these are the goals I track weekly, and of course monthly I track all of them. I keep this data so that I know where our business is going month after month after month, and I can also use these goals to set my goals 6 months from now. So because again, our goals are relative to where we were 6 months ago. So, and the last thing I'd like to say with this is goals are not meant to push people. I mean, that's the wrong way of looking at a goal. Of course, I expect my staff to reach our goals and exceed our goals. And I do expect us to grow our business, because if a business isn't growing, it's dying. It's going to fall apart for one of two reasons. It's either going to fall apart due to entropy, the second law of thermodynamics. You leave something alone long enough, it's going to tend towards disorder. Or two, a dental office that stagnates or plateaus is just going to erode its value relative to inflation. You know, it's just slowly dying year over year over year over year. Again, this is why you see these 30-year-old practices that are for sale for $200,000, $300,000. You know, 30 years ago, that was the equivalent of $1 million practice. But today, it's a $200,000 practice, and the dentist is, 70, 80 years old and has got, nothing to retire on. So that's why you have to grow your business. But again, these goals are not meant to push people. What they're meant to do is simply to make sure that you're growing your practice and making sure that you're giving your staff reasonable expectations to be met. And of course, I always say the job of the CEO is to, 1, set the expectations, 2, track the progress of those expectations and hold people accountable for making those expectations. But 3, and more importantly, give them the resources that they need in order to meet those expectations. And then 4, get the heck out of the way and let them do the work. If you're not meeting your goals, there's got to be a reason. And sometimes that reason is you, the CEO, not giving your staff the resources that they need. Maybe they need more availability. Maybe they need more open capacity. Maybe they need more help. Maybe they need more training. Whatever the answer is sometimes goals are a good indicator of what we need to do as owners in order to help our staff reach those goals. And lastly, when they do meet those goals, give them terrific bonuses. Make sure that they're well compensated for reaching those goals. There should be a victory at the end of the month, not something that's just arbitrarily pulled out of the air and they're punished if they're not met. That's not the purpose of goals. That's not the reason for goals. So, again, hope you guys enjoyed this video. We went into a lot here, and feel free to go back and check out any of those goals that I set for my staff. You feel free to use them for your staff as well. If your goals are a little bit different, that's fine. Just make sure that they're smart. They're specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're realistic, or they're relevant. And lastly, they need to be tracked on a timely basis. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm Dr. Bickling, and I'll see you on the next video. Talk to you soon. Bye. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like it, go to ownitdental.com or click the link above and check out my services. I have dozens of hours of training videos and have negotiated reduced lab fees for all my clients. So if you want to get out of the dental chair and start owning your business, go to ownitdental.com and check out my services, and I'll see you soon.